Anytime that I see any one of these diet trends or a fad diet being mentioned, it just makes me cringe. Hey, my name's Allie. I'm on a fantastical weight loss journey. I hope you'll join me. And today I'm going to be talking about fad diets and intermittent fasting. So this has come up quite a few times in the support group, and I would like to weigh in. I'm going to start out by saying my
usual, I am not a doctor, talk to your doctor. I am not a professional, talk to your doctor. And in this case, talk to a nutritionist.
Okay, let's jump right into it. So there was a study that was released that says, oh no, intermittent fasting is bad. And we see this happen anytime there is a fad diet or a trendy diet or something of that nature that becomes very popular, right? Our healthcare system will kind of sit up and take notice, and they'll study it. And, they may come out saying something very neutral. They may come out saying that it's bad. They may come out saying we didn't find anything, but it's a trend that we see happening over time. So, for example, I'm a canine nutritionist, and I have seen all of the human diet trends and how they translate into dog food trends, right? So that it comes across in marketing. And it's very, very important that you do your research before you start any sort of diet, and that you speak with your doctor, and ideally speak with a nutritionist. So let's talk about a few. So some of the most popular ones that are going around right now are the keto diet and low carb and intermittent fasting and carnivore diet. Don't do carnivore diet. Don't even get me started on carnivore diet. It takes a lot more than just seeing somebody post on Facebook and saying, oh, I fasted for 3 days, I feel great. Or, oh, I switched to the carnivore diet and I've lost this much weight. Or, I've been doing this for 6 months and I have had all this success, right? That is what we like to refer to as anecdotal evidence. It is a one of or a small percentage of people. It does not mean that it is a healthy choice for you. And many times those people were jumping on the bandwagon of the trend from somebody else who told them that it worked. But what you don't hear is about the people who end up in the hospital from the carnivore diet, or that end up having a heart attack because their triglycerides are through the roof. I can't ever say that word. Bad cholesterol. These are the things that you don't hear about. You don't hear about, oh, this person was fasting and then they had heart failure, right? So it's very important that if you're going to change your diet and do something other than what is recommended, which is a balanced diet, right? If you're going to go outside of that norm, you need to speak to a professional. And you need to speak to your doctor after doing some research, and then you also need to speak to a nutritionist, because they are the ones that have their finger on the pulse of all of these nutritional trends that are happening. It's not enough to just see something and go, oh yeah, I want to do that. Especially for those of us who are on a GLP1 medication, it's very, very important, first of all, that you remember that this medication is designed to make your body function correctly, whether you're on it for weight loss, diabetes, PCOS, any of them. It is designed to make your body function correctly. So there's no requirement for you to get on some fad diet. And that's the part that frustrates me when I look at people who post in the support groups, because that is years and years of diet culture being ingrained into us, right? I mean, When I was a kid, my mom went on the watermelon diet. There's an army diet that's like ridiculously low in calories. I mean, I could sit here and just rattle off stuff for days. There's the soup diet, cabbage diet, it's never ending. What you need to do is do your research, speak to your doctor, and speak to a nutritionist. If you're not willing to do that, if that doesn't sound like fun to you, if you don't want to take all of those steps, then that diet is not for you and you need to not do it. Because there are so many nuances to your health. You, as an individual, you need a professional to take a look at your medical history, the challenges that you're dealing with, right? You need a nutritionist to take a look at, okay, what are you talking about doing? When you say that you're going to be fasting, what do you mean? How long are you going to be fasting? Right? They have to take into account all of these things and then advise you accordingly. You can't just jump into it and think everything's going to be fine. And this is where a lot of people run into trouble because our bodies are phenomenal machines, right? And I learned this very, very early on in my career as a canine nutritionist. Their bodies are phenomenal machines, and they can be in a downward nutritional spiral for 6 months, a year, 2 years before they start to have serious problems. And the same is true of humans. Unless you are outright starving to death and have zero food, right? That produces immediate results. If you are doing something else long term, you are not going to see the downside of that in 6 months. You are not going to see the downside of that horrible diet in a year. You may not see it in 2 years, but eventually it will catch up with you. And unfortunately, we don't see that part in this world of social media, right? So a fitness guru who has made their entire life about carnivore diet, who then ends up in the hospital and has to have open heart surgery, right? The fittest of the fit. They are not going to then jeopardize that money that they make on a platform like this and say, oh, hey, just kidding. All of you who are following me on this diet that I'm doing, yeah, as it turns out, it took a couple of years, but now I have serious problems. You're not going to see that. They're not going to post about it in the Facebook group. But it does happen. And it does happen with all of these fad diets. So you need to be very careful. You need to do your research. And for Pete's sake, please speak to a professional. Now, having to do with fasting, I want to make a very simple point that I think that people miss when they look at fasting as an option. There are two camps of people at either end of the spectrum on fasting. There are those who use it as an opportunity to create a caloric deficit, and they eat whatever they want. But they're only eating whatever they want in a 4-hour window or a 6-hour window. Or they're fasting for multiple days in a row, and then the rest of the week they eat whatever the hell they want, right? In essence, if you break that down to its most simplest point, they are creating a calorie deficit. You can do that and not fast. You do not have to fast in order to create a calorie deficit. Now, at the other end of the spectrum, you have people who swear that there are health benefits and they fast and they do multi-day fasts and they do week-long fasts, right? But what you don't hear enough about is where this goes wrong. There was a camp back in the day, like out in the jungle, where this vegan guy had like this cult following, and he was like, come down here and go to my retreat, and everything's all included, and we're going to do yoga, and we're going to focus on, being vegan, and we're going to get healthy, and we're going to do, guided fasting sessions, and we're going to do all these things. I'm going to cut to the chase and tell you that multiple people got very sick and one lady died. Now, does that mean that there's anything wrong with a vegan diet? No. Essentially, what they were doing was starving to death. And then they had other health conditions, right, that this head honcho guy didn't know about, and they ended up having problems. So these fad diets are not a one-size-fits-all. So my recommendation to you is that you be very, very careful, that you do your research. If you find something that you're interested in, talk to your doctor and talk to a nutritionist so that you can make sure that whatever you're interested in is safe for you as an individual. Not what works for a bunch of people in a Facebook group. What is going to work and be safe for you? And remember, you do not have to fast to create a calorie deficit. You do not have to go full-blown keto to lower the number of refined carbs that you're eating if you're a diabetic or if you're looking to decrease the number of carbs in your diet. You can still do that and be on a balanced diet. So be careful of diet culture. Be careful of advertisements and fitness gurus who are coming out and saying, oh, I did this and do what I did, because it's a very dangerous mindset. You are responsible for your own health. Be your own advocate. Do the research. Okay. If you found this video helpful, give me a thumbs up. If you hated it and you do intermittent fasting and you're like, Allie, I don't believe a word you just said, give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing, because I talk about all sorts of different things and I am up to all kinds of shenanery, and I would love to have you along for the ride. Whether you agree with me or if you don't, that's okay too. All right. Be kind. Rewind.